Welcome back. Now, according to analysts, there are broadly two scenarios for the rand this election season. A rally if the ANC gets between 45 and 50% of the vote, resulting in a coalition with smaller parties, or a rand crash if the ANC gets below 40% of the vote. Just what is the rand likely to do? Andre Cilliers, Director and Currency Strategist at TreasuryOne, joins us with his analysis. Andre, always a pleasure and a good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all the viewers. Always a pleasure.
Wonderful. Andre, we'll get into this election in a bit. I think before we do that, maybe let's track back to how the rand usually behaves in election seasons, where the outcome is a little bit more predictable.
Usually, when the outcome is a little bit more predictable, and the ANC is just going to win and they're going to have the majority, and then the investors has got clarity, because policy will just really continue as it went. So there's confidence of no big changes. And that always makes investors very happy. What makes it different this time is the possibility of the ANC not getting the majority, not being able to just walk into Parliament and nominate the one person as president, and then there's a vote and then he's the president. This time around, if they get below 50, then they have to form a coalition with either a smaller party. If they get to the low 40s, then the lower they go, the bigger the party, or the more the parties become that they need to form a coalition with. And the more parties, the bigger the coalition is, the more and greater the possibility of, compromises between the coalition partners, and the bigger the possibility of changes in economic policy going forward. And that is disturbing for investors, and that is the one that will create volatility.
What we also
I just want to immediately say that I think there's a second one that could create volatility. And I've been just reading a little bit and watching what people say, and that's the one that is an outliner, is the possibility of a contesting of the outcome of the elections. In other words, parties saying, we do not think it was free and fair, we do not think this, we do not think that, and hence we are going to challenge the outcome of the election in courts. That could really upset the apple cart tremendously and cause a lot of negative volatility.
You're absolutely right, Andre. Lots of analysis we've seen, and that scenario certainly hasn't fallen to the fore before. So certainly something worth noting. What I'm also keen to get your thoughts on, Andre, I think last week we saw the rand strengthening at around 18.07 to the dollar. It was very comforting, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on whether that was because investors are starting to possibly accept that the ANC will come back with enough of a majority for there to be certainty and stability, or if that could also have been just the weakening of the dollar.
Okay, two reasons. First of all, the risk premium on the elections has been lowered, and most people accept that the ANC will come in, there will be stability in economic policy, and that they will come out with a result somewhere between 45 and 52%, needing a small coalition. Secondly, the dollar did weaken also in that process. It came back from the 105, the dollar had gone from the 105.80, 105.90 levels against the euro right up to very close to 109. And that also, with the risk premium being lowered on the election results, forced the rand to move to levels of 18.07. Since then, a little bit back, higher 30s at the moment, but there also again we've seen a halting of the advances of other currencies against the dollar, and it's getting sticky around the 180.60 area. So the biggest cause was the change in risk premium on the elections.
Of course, we also know we're in MPC week. That's another layer there of a complication. We are expecting also some data to come out of the US. This also tends to lead to some volatility in the rand. It's a big bit of a pot of things that could move the rand here, Andre. How are we expecting all of this to weigh up in terms of what might move the rand the most and what might move it the least?
Yeah, so some of the figures out of the Americas in the last month has pointed to an economy most probably not doing as well as they wanted it to do, and that there is some headwinds against it. And that caused the move in the dollar that I spoke about, because people now say there could still be interest rate decreases this year. It will just be later, and the rhetoric speech of Mr. Powell remains at interest rates to be higher for longer. Locally, our MPC are sitting today, and they will make the announcement on, they'll have a break in between, a long lunch tomorrow, and then they'll make an announcement for us on Thursday. But no surprises expected. Our inflation rate came out just a little bit lower, but really nothing to speak about. Still away from the midpoint 4.5%, that magical figure that Mr. Netanyahu so badly wants to see. But with Mr. Powell and the rest of the world not moving on interest rates, I don't expect any surprises whatsoever. I think Mr. Netanyahu will continue with his interest rate policy as it is. I think the MPC will be unanimous in not changing interest rates. In his speech, he's going to make comments that, yes, the fuel price and so forth looks positive towards inflation, and it does, because we are going to definitely see a lowering of the fuel price at the end of this month, and it's going to be substantial, which will have an impact on inflation. So he'll speak about that, but he'll also point to droughts and the possibility of food prices on the increase, and the possibility of all these things being negative for inflation. And hence, we need to be vigilant in fighting inflation. And I sound like the governor now, but that's what's so no change in interest rates, no relief for the consumer. If any relief comes for the consumer from a lowering of interest rates, it's going to be most probably end of third quarter or somewhere in the fourth quarter of this year, and it will be small.
And Andre, before I let you go, I must also ask you there what we are seeing with the rand, just in terms of the emerging markets. In the past, we've always said that the rand is a proxy for emerging markets. With so much happening here at home, is that still the case?
It's always the case because it's a very developed financial market, and where you can trade with ease. But that is only really relevant when there's big changes or big happenings in the international environment, which for the moment, we still have the Gaza-Israeli situation, we still have the Ukraine-Russian situation, but it's not escalating. It's also not de-escalating at this point in time. But there's nothing really significantly happening that warrants us to be used as a proxy currency at this moment. And the happenings in South Africa is certainly just a direct hit on where the currency could go, but we've spoken about that. So yes, still a proxy currency, but nothing happening that warrants any movement on that end.
Wonderful, Andre. Always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for helping us take stock of this one. And we'll be in touch after we're done with it, just to see how we fared. Thank you so much. Wonderful. That was Andre Cilliers, Director and Currency Strategist at TreasuryOne.